Welcome back to another episode of the NC Squared Conspiracy Podcast. My name is Simon.
I'm Chance.
And today we're going to talk about the Black Knight satellite. So if that's something that interests you, hang tight. Next time we're going to talk about Antarctica. So if that's something that interests you, come back and listen to our next episode on Antarctica. Before we get into it today, we're going to thank our patrons, as we do, and our supporters, those people who follow us on Facebook, anybody who listens to these episodes, our patrons who pay for our RSS hosting fees, and they pay for our beer, and they pay for our pizza. Today we just got Little Caesars, no endorsement.
No endorsement.
Tried to get the extra expensive Little Caesars pizza, and they told me that they were out of cheese stuffed crust.
I know.
What does that mean? Do they not make it?
We were just sad.
They don't make their own cheese stuffed crust?
No, they order that stuff and it's frozen, man.
They just order like the whole... That's weird. Like, I don't think so. I've seen them making crusts in
I
that.
know. It was funny, though. Maybe they just
I
didn't
think she
feel
was
like
just
doing
lying to me.
Maybe they didn't feel like doing it.
Maybe. Either way.
That was an extra $4 for just a cheesy crust.
That's true. It saved me because that was too much money. You should never spend $9 at Little Caesars.
True.
But anyhow, and also today we're drinking Mike's Hard Lemonade. We've both already finished one, and we're moving on to the second one.
Yep.
Which means we're off to a good start.
Good start indeed.
Chance, what is the Black Knight satellite?
Alrighty then. The Black Knight satellite is, well, it's a lot of things.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, exactly. Starting off with the actual conspiracy part of it, it's an artificial satellite of alien origin. What makes it weird is, one, the fact that it's been well documented over time, way before humans were in space.
This is true.
And then the other thing that kind of makes it stand out is the fact that it has a polar orbit. Now, if people aren't familiar with orbits and how satellites work, most of our satellites are equatorial for communication purposes, things like that. A polar orbit has its own benefits, and basically there's not many out there that do it. Main upside to a polar orbit is the fact that it can gather a large amount of data in high detail, but it's not good for viewing one specific location over time.
Right.
Because obviously the rotation of the Earth, the fact that a polar orbit is literally going up the Earth, over the pole, North Pole, down, and then around the South Pole and up again.
Right.
Equatorial is going around with, it's usually...
With the rotation of the Earth or against it.
Exactly, and they can be geosynchronized to where they can stay in one spot and view one area for a long period of time.
Right.
Etc.
So to sum it up, it is a UFO of sorts in near polar orbit to Earth that has been well documented over multiple decades, potentially longer.
They say up
and
to
we'll
13,000 years, yeah.
Right. And people believe that it is of alien origin.
Yep.
There are many other explanations for it out there. NASA has stated that it was a space debris of various types. At times, they've just called it space debris. After people started raising concern and asking about it, they stated that it was actually a thermal blanket that was lost. And they said they documented that they lost it on one of the missions, and that is actually what people see as the Black Knight satellite.
My big concern is, how do you lose a space blanket in space where everything's sealed?
Right. Yeah. You got a good point.
No one's just opening a door willy-nilly without securing all of the cargo that's within because in space you have a breech door that goes into a small compartment that's separate. You close that door, then you open the next door.
Right.
Usually within that container there's minimum supplies, usually maybe some, based on pictures and my basic knowledge.
And he was like, oh crap, I accidentally brought my space blanket.
Yeah. Or there was an accidental space blanket in the exit pod for some reason.
They said, or at least I read at one point, that it was it was a coating that was actually on the outside of the craft to help protect against solar radiation. Don't know if that's true, but I did read that at one point, so that could be an explanation for that.
Interesting.
So it would have had to have peeled off or broken off or something.
I'm gonna just delve into me calling bull on that.
Delve, please.
Because the way our insulation system on our spacecraft works is exactly that. It's like a you have an exterior shielding, then you have your thermal and your radiation shielding with inside, then you have insulation, then you have the interior wall.
Sure.
You don't just tape a space blanket to a window and say, well,
dollar store double-sided tape.
Yeah. And you go, well, that's our radiation protection, a space blanket.
It made it through leaving our own atmosphere, but then it peeled off once they got up there. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe one of the astronauts like accidentally got a hold of it and like ripped it off, and he's like, oh, there it goes.
I guess.
There it goes.
I mean, there's always two sides to a coin, so.
Sure. It's possible. I'm going to say that it's possible.
I'm going to say it's not.
I mentioned it earlier. The part that kind of throws me off with the blanket, well, there's many things that throw me off about this whole space blanket thing, but one of the parts that really bothers me is that it's in polar orbit, and like you said, most things aren't. So if it was lost while something was not in polar orbit, then how did it eventually move to rotating Earth?
Yeah,
in a polar way,
without degrading at all in its orbit.
Right. I mean,
it's not falling
at this point. Just as long as we have records of it, we, like as the United States, NASA has like taken multiple records of this thing on various accounts. We know it's been up there for decades. Yeah.
Also, why do you waste resources tracking something that's a blanket?
Right. What is considered to be the actual first pictures of it was actually NASA's STS-88 mission. And they actually took a video of this, and they took multiple pictures, and then it's available on NASA's website. You can find pictures of the Black Knight satellite. It's labeled as space debris.
Yep.
That's what they've called it. And I asked you to look into it. We looked into it a little bit. NASA does not often post pictures of space debris that is in space.
True.
Or ever, actually. But they post pictures of space debris that has fallen.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. There are like no pictures on NASA's website of just garbage floating around in space. But there's multiple pictures on multiple accounts of the space blanket from different missions.
Yep.
That have been posted. Which raises the question, if it's in a different orbit from what we are generally in, we went up once, we happened to see this space blanket floating, and they just happened to record it for some reason. What are the odds that a different mission at a different time would go up there without the intent of videotaping that space blanket, and they just happen to run into it again at the same time?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like you were saying, it's kind of like odd to run into it accidentally.
You like of all the space debris out there, you just happen to run into the same space blanket 2 times, and also it has not changed its formation at all. This space blanket still looks exactly the same as it did when pictures were taken decades ago.
Yeah,
hasn't fallen to Earth.
Nothing else has specifically collided with it.
It's near polar orbit.
Yeah.
So there are some things in polar orbit, but generally things aren't in near polar orbit. Especially trash, it seems like.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is it's trash.
Right. So it fell from standard orbit and changed directions, this space debris did.
And if anyone's curious, NASA's debris, like basically their debris tracking like program is called NASA Ares. And you can actually go to NASA's website and it will show you pictures as well as there's videos out there of like all the space debris that they are currently tracking due to it possibly causing a hazard to the ISS missions or any other like spacefaring missions.
Right.
But if you look on their website, they don't have any pictures of debris or the like in space.
They have charts and they have rendered photos.
Yeah, they have rendered photos and simulations. And then the 2 pictures I could find of actual debris where it was like a titanium pressurant tank and like a propellant tank that like fell off. Oh, and there's another one that's like a PAM-D. And those like are parts of the actual launch, like the fuel tanks and things like that when they come back to Earth.
So those are pictures on Earth?
Those are of them crashing back to Earth because that was their purpose in the first place. They were supposed to burn up in the atmosphere, and then they crash, and then they track them.
And so there had to be a reason for them to take pictures of this specific space debris and only this space debris on multiple accounts.
Exactly.
And also they had to go out and find it the second time. There's just no way they accidentally ran into it.
And let's face it, it's not cheap to alter the course of a massive space station or even just a shuttle to specifically take pictures or video of one piece of trash.
Sure.
Like, it's not cheap. That's fuel. That's fuel that could cause them their lives if you don't factor in the exact amount of fuel, the exact amount of trajectory and everything. This is down to like people who are very, very smart people figure all of this out way before it ever even launches. And then they're saying that they took a pit stop to slow down and take a picture of this.
So you're saying that on the mission up to like the space station, you don't think that the astronaut could be like, oh, that's the same blanket we saw last time. Let's just jet over there really quick, change course, and take some pictures of it?
Yeah, this isn't you driving around in downtown where you're like, oh, wow, that girl was hot. Let's go swing around the block and like...
No, it's like, I get what you're saying. That would be like... It'd be extremely irresponsible to do if your fuel source.
Not only that, but it's expensive. Like,
right.
It's expensive because of the time, the fuel, the resources necessary for... And you could say it's a 30-minute endeavor, but at the end of it all, you still made the conscious decision to spend 30 minutes in a location waiting for this debris to pass.
Right. That's true. You got a point. And I agree with that. It just seems odd to me.
Yeah.
So then, what do you think the Black Knight satellite is?
I honestly, I believe it is a satellite either. I don't disprove that it's a satellite. I will not. I think it really is. Whether it comes down to whether it's alien or a satellite we shouldn't know about and they accidentally documented it and now they're just trying to cover it up by saying, oh, it's just space debris. But it's like, like a spy satellite or something that they don't want other countries to know that we have currently. Like,
sure.
It's a simple thing. I want to believe it's artificial alien, like ancient alien, but you know how it is. Like, we've been here for a long time, so.
Right. What do you think the odds are that it's actually just a satellite that we put up there that we don't want people to believe is ours? We as a country, maybe.
Considering there's people who have said it's been up there before we ever launched our first thing into, like, our first satellites, I believe it's more likely that it's our own satellite than it is trash, but I believe it might be of alien origin.
Sure. That makes sense. On that note, in 1954, a Marine Corps naval aviator named Donald Kehoe said that the U.S. Air Force had detected 2 satellites orbiting Earth. This is 1954. That was 3 years prior to when any human satellite had been launched. First one being Sputnik. It was actually such a big deal that we originally thought that the Russians had beat us to space.
Yeah.
As soon as... That's what they said. They said that the Russians had beat us in the space race because they were that sure that...
It was a satellite.
It was a satellite that they had beat us just like that. He actually went on to become a UFO researcher after that endeavor. It's Donald Kehoe.
Kehoe.
Is that his name? Donald. Yep, Donald Kehoe.
That makes sense. That's hilarious too. Well, there's other people who have.
Saying, that's like, that dude must be credible.
Yeah.
Some sort. I mean, it was in newspapers and stuff as well at the same time. Later on, after that, the Department of Defense came out and they said that it was a piece of a satellite that had broken off.
Oh yeah,
like in launch.
Which one was that?
I don't remember. But that seems
was
weird
it the
to
Discover?
Me. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Discover satellite. Yeah.
We were. The reason that doesn't make sense, in my opinion, is because when you are sending something into space, it's an incredibly involved process, scientifically and mathematically. They're planning how much fuel they need and the weight. And there is nothing on that space shuttle large enough to be mistaken for a satellite
large enough for an astronaut to see it, say, hey, that's weird, and then take a picture of it.
Right. There is nothing that could break off that wouldn't be detrimental.
Yeah.
Something that's that big and weighs that much, and if they didn't need it, it wouldn't have been on there in the first place.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of stuff they look into.
That's the beauty of it all. I love the fact that their explanations change.
Right. They didn't say that, I might have said that wrong. They didn't say that the one that they saw in 1954, they didn't say that was one that had broken off of a satellite. Later occurrence.
Oh,
I just
okay.
realized I might not have specified because no one had been to space yet.
Yep.
Right.
Well, our good old...
But no matter what, they always default to saying that it's space debris.
space debris.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, space debris.
No, they later just came out and they said that it was a mistake. It wasn't actually satellites.
Which astronaut was it? I can't remember.
And what?
The one that had to admit later that he made a mistake.
Oh, no, that was a different guy.
Yeah.
I was still talking about the Donald Kehoe dude.
For you guys who are going to continue listening, there's an astronaut we'll talk about later who also said that it was a satellite and then had to recant his story.
Why don't you get into that? Who is it?
I can't remember. I thought you had it.
Tell me the story.
Give me a
not what I'm
second.
talking
I
about.
think it was, give me 1 second, American astronaut Gordon Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
I love the name.
Gordon Cooper.
He reported seeing the UFO in orbit. This report was not listed in any official NASA documents. And that's because...
It's in the news, though.
Yeah. He reported it to the news, to NASA. NASA did not document it because they said that he was wrong.
Right. That's right.
It's basically...
Another one, he came out later and said that he was mistaken. He was like, oh, no, guys, I was mistaken. I feel like that happens a lot. Someone comes out and they say that they saw a UFO at one point, and then a little bit of time passes and they change their mind and they're like, no, actually, I was mistaken. I didn't see a UFO.
Well, when your job's on the line.
Sure.
What's funny about this is that NASA station in Australia, there was about 100 people who also saw the same UFO and reported it as well.
Really?
Yeah. That was something that not a lot of people talked about, but
Interesting.
his report was corroborated with about 100 people in Australia. So
Bizarre.
yeah. Bizarre. All I know is that people give astronauts a hard time about reporting UFOs and then recanting the story, and they say they're not credible, and they don't. NASA and official government agencies always tell people well, they just mistook what they saw and jumped the gun on trying to tell the public.
Right. I just don't think you would jump the gun on claiming you saw a UFO.
I know. That's
especially these people
I'm assuming,
who it will affect their job.
Exactly. You're in a trained government position of some kind where you opening your mouth on something like that could cause you your job.
Right.
Seems irresponsible to just open the mouth. Unless you were pretty dang convinced and you thought it was big news. Yeah, you would
have to be really convinced.
And you thought it was big news.
This is a dude they trusted to send into space. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep. I'd trust a guy.
You tell me that you trust a dude who will falsely claim that he saw UFOs? You didn't catch that along the way somewhere?
Somewhere. Do you believe in aliens? Yes. You can't go to space,
You can't
sir.
go to space. That's not going to work for us. That's kind of a wild card situation when you send the alien believer into space. Yeah.
And most of these astronauts even come forth and say that they didn't believe in aliens and they never thought they were believers in aliens until they get up there and see things they can't explain. And maybe that's the Achilles heel of it all, is that they can't explain it. But it'd be pretty hard to explain seeing a spacecraft. That'd be pretty hard. Or a satellite you're not aware of, kind of thing.
So you give these people credibility?
I believe a lot of them believe what they saw. Some of them may not be 100% correct, but I believe you have someone who's trained, you have someone who's capable, they saw what they saw, and then they're told that they're wrong later. And it sounds like a pressured kind of you're wrong kind of situation. So
I agree with that.
That's just all I'm saying, is that I believe them. What I don't believe is the fact that they take their story back after they get home.
Yeah.
They have some meetings and some sit downs.
It's not like they just get home and they're thinking about it and they're like, Man, that was dumb. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, or they're like, well, maybe it was just space debris.
Maybe, since that's what the government tells them.
That's what the government told them to say.
Some mystery space debris that's well photographed and videographed throughout decades of space travel.
Supposedly been up there for 13,000 years. So
I was about to ask you about that. People do believe that it has been up unsourced.
Yeah,
sources,
very unsourced.
But that number shows up all over when you look it up. What is your take on
I don't know the
13,000 years?
I don't understand the timeline, and the closest I can get to trying to understand what the first sighting of the Black Knight, because it's tough to find that first sighting kind of thing, recorded sighting, because it's all jumbled information online, and whatever's hot and popular is usually the first 30 pages you end up reading.
This is true.
And a lot of them don't cite the first zero. But supposedly astronomers back in the day had documented the knowledge of this satellite because they were observing space to chart our star systems, and then they would observe this random satellite. Right. And it was documented through many people, many astronomers at the time. So like, it's not something where people were like, at the time they weren't like, that's an alien satellite. They were just like, hey, this object is kind of weird, and it's in like this weird polar orbit, and it doesn't make sense on why it's there.
Right.
So
people say there are hieroglyphs in the pyramids and whatnot that are of strong resemblance to the Black Knight satellite, and generally in context of speaking of gods and the such, as well as the Mayan spacemen, if you're familiar with those.
Oh, yeah.
The Mayan spacemen. What are, in your opinion, what are the odds that those actually have anything to do with the Black Knight satellite?
Well, if you come down to where, if you believe in ancient aliens, which I do, I'm 100% on the board with the ancient aliens.
Sure. We got aliens, we got ancient aliens too, I'm sure.
Well, and that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, we're not the first species out there. We're not going to be the last. It's just that simple.
Sure.
Like, whether they visited or not, that's always up for debate. But with these ancient civilizations, it seems that they've documented that they had these aliens visited them. They were of great power to be considered gods. It wouldn't be so unlikely for them to have wanted to track how human civilization went. And then as they were leaving, after they did the meet and greet, figured out whether they wanted to keep us alive or use our resources, whatever may be in an alien's mind to say or do.
Sure.
After they're leaving, why wouldn't you leave something there to, one, mark the location, but two, track what's going on? If we went to another planet and we found organic life, we would leave a satellite behind if we had the capability of tracking the information, especially in a polar.
Oh yeah, we as humans now,
we'd be all over keeping
we
track.
watch each other all the time.
And just in the human mentality of it, some say we're an aggressive species and we'd want to destroy and take their resources. But in a scientific, I'm pretty sure the majority of people would just want us to not interfere and leave them to be what they are.
If the public was involved at all, I don't believe we would have any sort of violence towards aliens if we were to find them on another planet, especially if they were not as evolved as us.
Exactly. If we ran into an alien species that was in a Stone Age kind of thing, we would leave a satellite to document and record the information of how their civilization is excelling and growing and going over time, and we'd leave them be. We'd have as little interaction as possible to maintain our little science experiment.
Very true.
That's what an alien civilization to me would do. Is they'd leave a Black Knight satellite in a polar orbit, which can gather a massive amount of detail and information very quickly, and then send it off to a communication center that's tracking that information, both climate, overall progress of their civilization, technological advances.
Sure.
First nuclear bomb.
In a way, that explains, if it were to be a satellite placed there by aliens long ago, that explains the polar orbit. For sure, because they wouldn't be concerned with our communications. Why would they care if we were trying to bounce radio signals out or something, especially since they could pick up on that from much further away?
Not only that, but an equatorial one requires a lot of monitoring and readjustment.
Okay.
Polar orbit you can set into a loop system.
Yeah.
There's a less degrade still degrade to a certain degree, I think. But if you do, I'm sure with the math and capability and the right technology, you could have that thing last 100,000 years easy.
Sure.
Whereas an equatorial, because of our constant spin, gravity and stuff, I believe there would have to be constant readjustments to it to keep it in a fine-tuned position.
That's
If you're several light years away and you're just monitoring the information as it comes in every couple years or 100 years, whatever it may be, you would require less maintenance, less upkeep on it. So a polar orbit would be the ideal.
But like even beyond that, it just makes sense that they would be less concerned with the information they could get from that type of orbit than the kind of data gathering, climate, that sort of thing, and more of the development of our people as a whole.
Yep.
That would be more concerning to them. I imagine, like you said, if we were to leave a satellite on another planet to observe this other species, alien species, that's how we would do it.
Especially since we know how to go to space. We shoot in an equatorial kind of launch.
Right. Truth.
So it'd be more likely for a civilization that did reach a spacefaring level would find or run into it on that type of launch rather than a polar launch. It'd probably take longer or be less likely to be interfered with.
Right. Have you read of claims that over nuclear testing sites, there has been a greater monitored appearance of the Black Knight satellite?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is actually in areas where nuclear bombs have been set off. It is said that the satellite was there shortly thereafter or during or in the near future.
See, if it was a satellite that was capable of some type of self-governance,
right,
and it detected something like that, it would make sense that it would shift it would be given the power and ability to shift to monitor that specific thing because they want to know what our military applications were capable of.
Right.
Are we capable of harming them? Like
UFOs in general have a really they are reported often near that sort of area. And like after bomb testing, nuclear testing, it's said that like UFO sightings skyrocket in the area.
Yeah.
Which would make sense because that's a big deal and something that's observable from outer space.
Yeah, and it makes a huge
especially
impact
if you're like reading the radioactive levels from afar and you're like, what happened right there? We're going to have to go check that out.
Pretty chasm. I wonder if it's been reported to be around natural disasters like volcanic eruptions and stuff too.
That'd be good to know.
Might have to look into that.
We would have to look up into that. But what do you think about, like, do you think it is possible that this satellite is somehow repositioning itself to that sort of benefit?
If it's of ancient or alien, yes. I believe it would have the ability to self-govern itself or remotely be moved for very important reasons, basically.
But wouldn't somebody have caught on to that by now?
Yeah, but I mean, again, polar orbit, we're not like keeping track of it. Not to mention it's difficult to keep track of something like that on a regular basis, I think.
Probably. Yeah, because of how it's moving. I guess that could make sense.
Because I can't easily look up where its orbit is like online and then look with a telescope to check it out.
No, there's no public record as to where the Black Knight satellite or this space debris is right now. Mm-hmm. Of any sort.
Exactly. Trust me, I looked. I tried.
Yeah, I did too. I typed it in multiple times, just location of Black Knight satellite. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
There's plenty of CGI videos of it on YouTube, though.
Oh, that's good.
I know. I looked it up a couple of times just to like find videos to post, and we posted videos and pictures of this thing on our Facebook. If anybody's curious,
I love how it looks.
Conspiracy on Facebook.
Yeah,
you can. I like how it looks too. That's another thing that kind of bothers me about the blanket theory.
It doesn't look anything like a blanket.
Is that for one, it doesn't look like a blanket, and two, it never changes. It looks the same every time there's ever a picture or a video taken of it.
Yeah, they've had like 5 different picture angles from it.
Yeah,
and it's pretty much stayed the same forever. So
could be like similar to a weather balloon thing, but like a space weather balloon.
Yeah,
maybe. It's possible. I'm sure that's what they'd say if it came down to it.
Space
weather. But like balloon. To me, if it could change its position, someone would have already figured it out. Because there's like junior astronomers and that sort of thing, and like people that track positions of satellites. And if they saw this thing, they'd be taking videos of it, no doubt.
Yeah, but I still think that'd be difficult. Like,
Do you?
how often do you see, I mean, other than the blinky light, how often can you track an actual satellite with a telescope?
Right.
One of our actual government ones where
it's
you
moving.
can actually look
I mean, you
up.
can look up and see it moving with your eyes. So
Yeah.
trying to track that thing with a telescope,
Exactly.
no. There's a lot of videos on YouTube of people with their telescope, and you'll see like a satellite fly by. It's just like a blur really quick.
Yeah. And you
funny.
might be able to see the basic outline and the solar wings on it. Like,
Right, yeah.
But like,
People
there's
have
not much
observed
going on.
like the space station
Yeah.
and stuff before.
And see, that's the other thing is that a lot of satellites can be deeper into space, like farther out than just right on our stratosphere or whatever. I think the Black Knight's pretty dang close. Like, it's right there on the edge of our
It is.
atmosphere.
It's really close compared to almost anything else.
That's not only a fast moving object, but it'd be hard to document. Like, even with like powerful telescopes, it'd be hard to follow that because
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
just one, how fast it's moving, the fact that it's moving in an odd polar orbit rather than geosynchronized,
And the fact that you can't look up where it is. So you'd have to like figure that out first.
Yeah, exactly. You have to figure out after many attempts. So I don't think it would be likely to come across someone who's like, "Hey, I tracked the Black Knight satellite. Here's some video or photos of it." Like,
No, that's why there's
from Earth
why
anyways.
there's so many CGI ones because they all claim to be real,
Yeah.
but they're so bad, so bad. So you think, if anything, it would be there for some sort of surveying purpose? It would be watching us as people as a whole rather than concerned with minute details.
That's what we would do.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, 100%. We would take a step back, and we'd want to observe them over time to one, see if their civilization died out, and we can go colonize and use the resources in a humane kind of, way. I say humane, but like in a fair way. Or you want to see if they grow enough to be of use or danger to your own civilization.
Right. Very true.
So,
But then, so
go ahead.
for those who haven't caught on, the conspiracy is that people believe it's being covered up. That
Yeah.
NASA knows about it,
Yeah.
and they know what it is, and they're not wanting to tell people for whatever reason. What do you think that reason would be?
Well, one, because they can't catch it.
Sure.
What if they already attempted and it has some type of defense system?
Fair.
I mean, it'd probably be hard to cover up like something like that, but maybe it has the ability to move, like we were talking about. If it moves over to check out nuke, if it detects a close, spacecraft
Sure.
that may be trying to track it, one, I think that would be really difficult because we don't put any kind of spacecraft in a polar orbit,
Right.
which is the first step to trying to capture something like that.
Right.
Is you have to put yourself not only in a polar orbit, but then you have to do the calculations, figure out the math, and then speed up and descend to where you can line right up with it. And space is a big place.
Space is a big place.
I've played space simulators. It is hard.
It's hard even in the game.
Line up with a satellite.
Right. Even in the
space.
game. Sweat's dripping down your brow
Where
as you're
like
trying to...
the computer's doing most of the work,
I know.
and then all I do is
It's
hit
true.
one.
It
And
does
I
all the
still
math
have
for you,
trouble.
even. That's very true.
So I'm just saying that I like
Making it further weird that they've taken pictures of it on numerous accounts, because it would take an exhaustive amount of effort in order to do so purposefully.
and not to mention, we've received radio waves from it as far back as, Nikola Tesla. So
Wonder how fast it's moving.
that's a good question.
In the video from STS-88, they took an extended video of it.
It's got to be
Seemed to
moving
be
pretty
relatively
fast.
stationary, so does that mean they were moving in polar orbit with it? Or was it not moving fast enough that they, it like blew by their window or whatever?
Well, space is a big
They
place.
said
again.
it's a space. Well, they said it's a space blanket, so it's very small. In the video, it looked quite large, so that means it was really close to them. That means it had to be moving in the same direction as them at the same speed.
Which is
otherwise
impossible.
you wouldn't have been able to see it on the camera through the window.
That would be impossible because they've already admitted as such as the fact that it wouldn't be following the same orbit as them.
Right. He also told us it's space debris, but the first time we noticed it was before anybody had been in space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like I said,
Not very trustworthy.
we actually saw it around that 1954 period that you were talking about, but
Right.
we've heard it
One of
before
many
that.
accounts.
Yeah.
There was many accounts, but we had heard it before that. I'll actually talk about that a little bit later here. We're going to take an intermission and grab another beer, and we're going to be right back. So give us just one moment. And we're back. Had to grab another beer. Today we are opening the Legend Lemongrass Cider by Incline Cider Company. No endorsement yet.
Nope.
But we're still waiting for the email or however you get endorsements. Just cracked it open
I think
here.
we have to just tell them.
We're going out of a frosted mug because that's the coolest way to drink.
Always.
I thought I had this before, but I actually have had the One Tree lemongrass and basil.
Oh, okay.
I haven't even gotten it close to my face yet, and I can already smell it. It smells very lemongrassy.
I don't think I've ever really had lemongrass.
No?
No, I don't think, like, even the actual lemongrass.
The One Tree one was good, so let's give this one a try.
That's got a little bite to it.
That does have a bite to it.
I like it.
It's a little sour, isn't it?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I kind of like that, actually. That's a good shake up. What's the percentage on that? 6.5. So there's a little bit of a bite there. Not a whole lot. It says crisp, bright, refreshing, citrus. And that's all that matters.
Family owned, crafted, sustainability, gluten free.
You were talking about 1954 when...
No, 1899.
Well, you were talking about 1954 when the supposed first occurrence of the Black Knight satellite happened.
Oh, yeah.
And then I said, actually, it was earlier than that. But you beat me to the punch and you're stepping on my lines. So why don't you just go ahead?
Oh, okay. So it's like that, eh?
Go ahead.
Here, let me take another sip of my beer.
All right. I will join you for that. Beer number 3.
That's good stuff. All right. So the beating you to the punchline part was Nikola Tesla's report that he had received signals from what he had assumed at the time was Mars. He said with pretty good confidence that he believed it was from Mars.
When was that?
1899 to 19... he talked about it until like 1935.
So yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. But 1899 was when he first received the signals that he believed was from Mars. Then in basically 1900, he did additional studies of the signal. 1901 rolled around, and he started to develop receiving equipment for it. You know, and I think it was 1907, he actually, or maybe in 1909, he actually built the radio tower.
Right. But basically what that means, well, we got to take a step back here.
Yeah.
He believed it was from Mars.
At the time, yeah.
Scientists have concluded that he was actually receiving transmissions from what are known as pulsars. Rapid spinning pulsars have been known to send out signals that we can, potentially oscillating signals, that we can read from space through the form of radar. Skeptics and conspiracy theorists, who are the people I trust, of course.
Of course.
They believe it was most likely the Black Knight satellite.
I trust them because they don't use big words on me.
That's true. You guys aren't trying to weird us out or anything. I believe them. Well, I think assuming that it was the Black Knight satellite is tough to do. That is a large assumption.
It is.
On top of that, I don't necessarily think that it's outputting any communication-esque signals to us.
I agree with you that it wouldn't put anything out to us. I think it's sending it to...
Probably the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we couldn't come across it, but I believe someone was saying radio signals would be a very difficult... because they deteriorate over time. So it'd be difficult to send like mass information through radio signal over mass distance in space. But maybe I'm misremembering that.
There's various types of radio communication.
Yeah.
Here's what we use currently for like space stuff.
Yeah.
But something that's in near polar orbit though would be no problem.
True. And if it bounces its signal that it's taking from Earth to the artificial moon,
Right.
and then the artificial moon being a much larger satellite can send it out to the prospective
Sure.
needs.
But Tesla, this guy is regarded as many to be a genius.
I believe he was a genius.
I believe he is. I think he's one of the most underappreciated people in history, potentially.
Funny that he's recently become a hot topic.
Yeah, bummer for him that it happened this late.
I know.
It's long gone now.
He had stolen ideas and
People did say he was a little out there, potentially a little wacky.
later in life, a lot of people claim that.
And if he went through what he did,
Yeah.
we'll do an episode on Tesla.
We'll do.
We've talked about that. We will actually. We've been talking about that for a while. We're gonna have to.
There is a huge conspiracy around him.
There's many, but credible, I would say. He's a guy who has come up with many
technologies that we use
today. Absolutely. Without him, we would be in a different place entirely.
100 years ago, and we're still using his technology.
Yeah. It's the foundation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He actually, in 1901, the Collier's Weekly published an article by him that was called Talking with the Planets. He was talking about these radio transmissions that he received. Well, actually, we'll share that to our Facebook page because I had kind of a tough time finding it at first.
Do we want to share that one or the condensed version?
We'll do both. Why not? We'll
right.
share both of them same time. Why not? But anyhow, we'll share the article because it is interesting. He believed that this invention he was using where he was hearing things from planets such as Mars, he thought he had tapped into some sort of supernatural thing.
Mm-hmm. But then he started receiving numbers from it.
Yeah, he said he started receiving numbers, which he said made sense to him when he started thinking about it because numbers are universal.
Yep.
It's a universal language. And whenever you hear someone say that they received a transmission from an alien life and it's in English, you know that they're lying because that just doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Why would they be speaking in English?
We've talked about that too.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So that makes sense. Would you call him credible?
Yes, 100%. He's credible. Not everything he says is gold. Obviously, people can make mistakes, but he did this over many years. He studied the same radio signals.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. People have gone back and they've located what they believe to be the same radio signal now, and that's coming from this Black Knight satellite. So that's at least what backs up the idea that maybe he was hearing something from the Black Knight satellite originally.
And like you said, universal numbers make sense.
Right. If you're trying to communicate.
And that's funny that you say that because we did that. We
Right.
sent out the Voyager with the golden record on it.
Yeah.
With numbers and,
Right,
and
yeah.
equations that you have to solve to get the next piece to decode it and then eventually get
really?
there. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It shows you how, like, there's a huge thing. I'll probably post that to our Facebook
Okay, we'll
page.
post that. We got a big list of stuff we're going to post.
Yeah. But it's all, like, relevant. And
Yeah, no, definitely.
Like I said, the golden record, we use numbers. Like, I think we use the number pi to, like, you use that to decode something. Then it will show you, like, what a pulsar sounds like, and then, like, blah, blah, blah. And it basically tells aliens, if they ever run into it and can decode it, our exact location in the universe.
That's interesting.
Yeah. We were like, hey, we're over here, guys.
Some people would probably be against that.
My name's on it.
Yours is?
No. My name was put on some type of record. My mom did it when I was younger.
That's not the same. It didn't
I think
make
it was the one that went to Mars.
I don't think so. I'm going to assume that's not true.
It is true.
I have deemed myself a professional conspiracy theorist because I looked
like
it up. It's a self-proclaimed title.
What?
Conspiracy theorist.
Oh, okay.
You don't get labeled that. You don't get a degree in that. It's self-proclaimed, and I'm self-proclaiming that I am a professional conspiracy theorist.
All right, fair enough.
I have a show about it.
Eh.
And I'm going to assume that you're lying using all of my...
Oh, with your degree.
Yeah.
All right, I'll prove it to you later.
Okay, whatever. We'll post that too. Why not?
It's a conspiracy.
Why not? So that's kind of actually the first, if you believe the skeptics to say that we were hearing from the Black Knight, or Tesla was hearing from the Black Knight satellite, that would actually be the first recorded instance of it, other than the hieroglyphs and stuff. And I kind of discard those. Not saying that that's not what it is, but the fact that
There's no way to be
we don't have a super strong understanding of hieroglyphs and that sort of thing.
And I think hieroglyphs are a large interpretation on certain things too. So
definitely, there's few people that can interpret them.
Yeah.
So
the next one was the Lunan guy, was who said he received the same radio signal from the Black Knight satellite. He's the one that actually said it was the satellite.
When was that?
I think somewhere around the 1970s or something like that.
Well, that would have had to have been older than that, because that one dude in the 50s said that he...
No, in 1973, Scottish astronomer and
Astronomer.
astronomy and science fiction author.
Credible
Science fiction author.
I like that.
Duncan Lunan wrote that he identified and deciphered a hidden radio message.
He deciphered it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Science fiction guy, astronomer. Got it.
Credible.
He says he deciphered the message and it said, "Start here. Our home is Epsilon Bootes."
I don't know. I don't think that's how you pronounce it.
I don't think. Boots.
Boots. We'll call it Boots. That's easier.
Yeah. Boots.
Epsilon Boots.
Which is a double star. We live on the 6th of 7 planets coming from the sun. All right.
Sure.
Which is larger of the two. All right. Our 6th planet has 1 moon. Our 4th planet has 3. Our 1st and 3rd planets each have 1. Our probe is in the position of Arcturus, known in our maps. Epsilon Bootes is a real star in the constellation called Bootes.
Can I give you an opinion on that?
Yes, please.
Because, like, forgive me for my language, but the bullshit meter is, like, maxed out. And I'll tell you why. Because it is easy to make up a message like that. He starts rattling off all these numbers to make it seem like it's more believable. It's like, oh, they knew how many moons this planet had, how many moons this planet had, and the name of this solar system or double star that they're living near. It's easy to make that up because we already have all that information.
Yep.
And on top of that, why would they have the same names for it as us? Like, they've been listening in and they know what we call it. Somehow, without communicating, they've learned enough about our language that they're like, they can communicate to us.
Yeah, there'd be no way, because it'd be a completely alien language.
Absolutely.
They wouldn't call...
Well, he deciphered it.
I know he deciphered it.
He deciphered... That is his interpretation.
Then give us the original message.
Is there anywhere online, is there access to the original...
Not that I could find.
Was it a recording?
He said he deciphered the radio signals and the numbers and stuff and broke it down to English, I guess, apparently.
Yeah, numbers directly translate to English. Just go to Google and start
or German, whichever
like
one.
binary or
Scottish.
something. Okay.
But the point is like you said, Epsilon Bootes. First of all,
you said he was a science fiction writer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Sure.
I 100% don't believe that.
No, I don't believe that.
I believe in the Black Knight satellite. I do not believe in that. Right there.
No. What a shame. That's reminiscent of the glass pyramid beneath the Bermuda Triangle we talked about. It just seems like it's not even like too far-fetched because, like, sure, communication sent to us, I get it. But the person who happened to intercept it happened to be a science fiction writer, and he doesn't have the original recording, just his own deciphering of it.
And I don't remember him being a code breaker or anything.
You should look up what books he's written. Are they all like alien books?
Oh, no.
Was he just hyping up his own book?
Yeah, he's like giving a conference, a news thing, like, I've deciphered this message.
Yeah, you get
by the way, buy my book.
You get people all hopped up about aliens, and then you're like, by the way, I wrote a book on aliens. You guys should buy it, and I'll sign it.
Directly related to the research I've been doing with this deciphered message.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Let's see. All right, give me a second to find what his books. Why are we going to promote his books?
I'm not promoting.
Right.
I kind of want to read them, to be honest.
Duncan Lunan.
Duncan Lunan.
I'm gonna look. Duncan Lunan books.
You're taking too long.
I'm done.
The awkward silences.
You could have saved us.
I don't have anything to say.
Oh, he's also what? The Stones and the Stars is one of his books. About
Stones and the Stars.
It's about the, what you call it? Circle, stones, big.
Stonehenge.
There you go.
Okay.
The alcohol is making it into my brain. He's written New Worlds for Old. Written.
Sorry.
Wrote.
No need to correct.
The Elements of Time. Those are the only ones I'm seeing right offhand.
Interesting.
Children from the Sky is another one.
Okay, so
2012.
This guy. Oh,
he
so
not
this
dead?
is current. So this guy engages in multiple types of science fiction writing.
Yeah.
But now I realize they're calling it science fiction, but he believes it to be real. Am I mistaken?
Well, I mean,
Like the stone and the stars, I imagine that's his opinion on Stonehenge, but it has been labeled science fiction because he does not personally have facts to back it up.
True.
Okay, so calling it science fiction, maybe.
Well,
It's more of an opinion-based thing.
yeah. If you go to his Wikipedia page, it says his 1970s report of a possible space probe orbiting around the moon sent by inhabitants of a planet orbiting Epsilon Buddhist. I think it's Buddhist.
Buddhist, sure.
Brought him to international notice.
International notice.
When you have something to gain from your, hey, I know there's aliens out there. Now I question you.
But as far as international notice, generally you don't get noticed unless you're doing something wrong. There's plenty of, there's YouTube channels out there with people who only talk about UFOs and conspiracies, and they get millions of views on every video, every podcast, and that sort of thing. Those people would be of international interest before some science fiction writer. Unless he's doing something that's wrong. Right?
Yeah. I'm just reading up on him right now. It's kind of interesting.
Let's hear it.
1973, in an article called Spaceflight, a magazine published by British International Society, blah, blah. He did identify and deciphered a hidden radio message sent by alien space probe that had been caught but overlooked in the late 1920s by a collaboration of Norwegian and Dutch researchers who were studying the long-delayed echo effect. Blah, 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 L5 point, blah, blah. It's just funny because back in the 1970s, that'd be a big deal.
Sure.
Especially with Roswell still being a big deal at the time, probably.
Probably.
Like, if you're saying that you deciphered a radio message from space that...
This is kind of like right around the time that claiming to see aliens was cool and like got you a lot of attention and was becoming big in the media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that.
International fame.
But international interest, that doesn't mean like the government was interested in him necessarily.
No, it just means his name was in every
But hang
household.
on. But like War of the Worlds, right?
Oh, yeah.
When that book came out and they were broadcasting it on the radio or broadcasting readings of it or recordings of it or whatever,
People died.
it caused like a public panic
Wow.
because people thought it was real.
Yeah.
Are we sure that this wasn't just a science fiction thing that he published, that people still to this day are like under the impression that it's real?
He hasn't admitted as such. But
Maybe you don't even know about it.
Yeah, but then again,
He
why
needs to
would
listen
you?
to the podcast so he knows people know.
Yeah, he needs to come on the podcast.
We'll get that dude must be ancient.
I want to see the original message.
How old is it? Yeah, that's true. You got the original message?
Like, no, I did not.
No, it's not up there.
We should email him.
Disappointing.
I'm going to email him.
You're gonna email him?
I'll find him.
I mean, if he put something out as soon as 2012, I'm sure he must do like signings and stuff.
Watch
right?
me try to email him.
Maybe.
He died like
Did
in
you make
2000.
sure he's not dead now? Because 2012 to now, much time has passed.
Much time. has
Enough
passed.
time for someone to die, especially someone of international interest.
That's true, I guess. Especially if he's talking about aliens.
If
and
you
he's
say it
close
like
to the
that,
truth.
it seems.
I can follow him.
Where? Twitter?
No,
Dang it. We have a Twitter account we don't use, so that would have been perfect.
it would have been perfect. Man, why can I not get his biography? No. Bio. What?
You're taking
Women's
too
World
long.
Cup? What are you doing, Google?
I'm going to ask you questions while we go here because you're taking too long and
All right.
Google's taking you on
An awesome trip.
an awesome trip.
Women's soccer.
You stated what you think the Black Knight satellite would be there for.
Mm-hmm.
It would be for some sort of observation.
Yep.
When do you think it would become publicly noticed?
Publicly noticed?
Yeah. When do you think it would be like an acknowledged thing?
When we see direct effects from it, that would be when it would have to be noticed.
Right.
Which comes down to, one, it does something we weren't expecting and then we're surprised. Or two, private company runs into it, takes a closer look. They're not controlled by government. So they kind of say, hey, by the way, guys, we found this.
I believe that that's when we would figure out. Over the next decade, really any conspiracies that people have about things that are in Earth's orbit, near or distant, we're going to start figuring out, because even if you are a conspiracy theorist like us and you believe that the government could potentially hide something from you, private companies won't all do that. No. Especially, you're the first person to prove there's aliens.
Oh, that's... Your company's doing pretty
You're
good.
set.
If you can prove, like, shadow of a doubt, bring it down to Earth, show it off, reverse technology it, like, you've now made history.
Yeah, absolutely. You would go in books.
Yeah.
And stuff. Interesting.
It is.
Did you know people believe that Russia tried to shoot down the Black Knight satellite?
I did not know that.
There's videos online even of a missile soaring through the air and exploding in the night sky, and they say that that was them attempting to blow down the Black Knight satellite.
It's got a defense mechanism. Star Wars.
It's still up there, probably. Actually, it's been a long time since we've gotten recent pictures of it. It's just up there watching.
Yeah. Where are we going with this? You're not safe.
You're not safe. Exactly. No, but you're really big on the ancient alien thing.
I am.
I don't know if I'm really big on the ancient alien thing necessarily, but I am really big on the government keeping secrets from people.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that it is wrong.
Ancient aliens has to
There
tie into that.
is no reason we would have, on multiple occasions, taken pictures of the same space garbage, videos even of the same space garbage, gone through massive amounts of effort in order to do so. Why? There would be no reason. That means there is something of interest with this Black Knight satellite or this space blanket. Even if it is just a space blanket, there is something interesting about it. And people have asked about it. If it was something that they could tell people, they would just tell you up front. But that raises a question. Why would they take pictures of it and make it public at all?
So, like we were kind of talking about, the fact that if they found out that it was of alien origin or they didn't understand where it came from, it would, one, be difficult to probably sync up with and actually take a closer look. So they'd take pictures and videos to try to figure out. And then NASA is no longer a government company, so it's slightly public now. So I think it has to post like the information and stuff. But at the same
time, they post just like artist renditions of things all the time. So there must not be anything saying that they have to be accurate. Most of the pictures they post are just artist renditions.
Logically, in my mind, if someone's questioning something, you then prove them wrong. So if people are saying there's a Black Knight satellite, this guy gained international attention because he deciphered a signal he said came from the Black Knight satellite. Then suddenly NASA's taking pictures of the Black Knight satellite and saying, look, it's nothing, it's just a blanket. And then moving on.
Fair.
It's a knee-jerk reaction is what it is. When, especially in government, when you question something, their initial reaction is to discredit you or to prove you wrong. If they can do both, great.
Like, let's say back in 1954 when what's-his-face, Kehoe, or whoever, said that he saw these satellites in space, and then government made him disregard it, or he changed his mind, or whatever. That means that they've already realized that people will find that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so one of the first things you would want to do is create a story for it. if you were planning on covering it up.
Or an explanation.
STS-88, which was the first time we got pictures or videos of it from close, was in 1998. It was actually the first mission to the space station.
Which is way after everybody's been claiming it's been there.
It's way after people have been claiming that it was there. So at that point, suddenly they're interested in this space garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Space garbage that they went out of their way to take pictures and video of to specifically show people it was nothing.
Right. International Space Station. It's not in polar orbit. Am I wrong?
No, it's equatorial. Kind of. I think it's a slightly different plane, but
they did manage to get pictures of this Black Knight satellite on their way up. Concerning, even. Seems impossible.
It's basically I drop a ball and you have to swipe your camera from left to right and take a picture of the ball.
That's it.
That's tough.
That is tough. You have to think about how fast it's moving. Mm-hmm. They haven't told us how fast it's moving.
They haven't even told us its exact orbit.
But even just thinking about how fast, like, the space station's moving.
Yeah.
And something else is moving not in the direction of that.
Yeah.
So
literally perpendicular.
Perpendicular to it, absolutely. But we were managed to get a lengthy video and multiple pictures of it.
Mm-hmm.
Odd.
To say the least.
To say the least. We'll kind of wrap it up there.
Yeah.
I enjoyed talking about it. I like the Black Knight satellite. I believe it's a mystery that potentially could hold information of value.
Especially later.
Later on, especially. And
as more companies get out there and
it's become big enough that it's been acknowledged by some of the largest organizations in the world. NASA has acknowledged it. Multiple credible people throughout history have acknowledged its existence.
Very true.
So it's worth talking about, no doubt.
And even if there's a little bit of information being withheld, that's a conspiracy right there.
We'll make it one if it's not one.
Well, I mean, realistically, if it's nothing, be upfront and public about it.
That's true. That's the easiest way.
Yeah.
They're so bad at making cover-up stories.
Oh, they are.
We should talk about that in the post-podcast podcast.
Oh, we will.
For now, thanks everybody for listening. We made a resolution last time to drink more beers, and this time we're drinking more beers. And we said we'd have more pizza, and this time we have pizza. So
heck yeah,
we're off to a really good start. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
I hope
shoot us a message, leave us a comment, leave us a rating. Anything is appreciated.
We love hearing from you guys.
We do. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Patreon. Those are all good places to contact us. Mm-hmm. If you just can't get enough of us, maybe not on Twitter. If you just can't get enough of us, you can go to our Patreon, and even if you're only donating $1 a month, you unlock the podcast, which is like a 20 to 30 minute special that we do after every single episode.
Yep.
So that means if you haven't been following us on Patreon up till now, there are multiple episodes awaiting your eager ears.
Indeed.
And couldn't have said it better myself, because I did say it myself.
Yeah. So
obviously you can find our podcast wherever you're listening to it right now. You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on Google Play Podcasts, Spotify. We're on Listen Notes, Castbox. We're all over the place. It goes directly to YouTube. It goes directly to Facebook. If there's anywhere you listen to podcasts normally and we're not there, tell us, and we will be there, as long as it doesn't cost an exorbitant amount of money.
Very true. That is an accurate statement, sir.
Absolutely. Again, our next episode is going to be on Antarctica, so definitely come back and join us on that one. It's going to be a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening.
That's my favorite.